Okay, we're in the middle of Siman Pei Tes. It's a long Siman, a Siman that deals with the more technical and complicated types of satot, different kinds of potential period. And many of these periods are not very typical. They're very unusual. So I'm not going to go into too much in depth into every single one of them, but pretty much what the Mechaber says and what the ramifications are. By ramifications, I mean how one type of period or one pattern can undo another pattern. It all depends on how many times he sees it, which we need to explain a little bit more. What does it mean? How many times is really based on a machlokes Rav and Shmuel, which maybe we did not sufficiently last time. In order to understand Se'id Hey all the way to Yud Beis, we have to go back into the Gemara, and there we find that there is a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel as far as Dilug Veset HaChodesh. What? No, I'm just quoting by heart right now, just a particular machlokes where when we're dealing with a particular day of the month that she happens to see, but it's not the exact same day of the month, there's a dilug in the day, where it could be 1 month the 5th, the next month the 6th, the next month the 7th, that there we see that Rav says it's sufficient to have 3 re'iyot, and Shmuel says you need 4 re'iyot, because the first re'iyah is not part of the cheshbon. As we explained, that the first one belongs to the past. It's not necessarily indicative of a pattern yet. It's a point of beginning. So according to Shmuel, that doesn't really count. You would have to therefore to see 3 additional days where you see a sequence, where you see a pattern. And according to days besides the first one. In other words, you have Iyar, Nisan, Iyar, Siman, and Tammuz. Right. You just have a date according to Shmuel. Right. Nonetheless, according to Rav, you do have a day. A day, you have, for example, Aleph, and then the next month you have Beis, and the next one you have... So you have Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. So Rav includes the first, the Re'iyah. After all, it's a Re'iyah, and there seems to be a pattern. And that is sufficient, according to Rav, that's the machlokes. It's sufficient to be considered a pattern, and that's called a Veset Dilug, where it does not recur on the exact same day. It does not necessarily occur after a certain haflaga, a certain lapse amount of time. It's a dilug. Somehow, in nature, this could happen.
Question.
Yes?
Where to say that machlokes is not in the number, is it 3 or 4 blood? Or is it one has to see distance between 2 bloods? I need 4 days, 4 seeds.
Right.
And the one is now counting the 3 days rather than 2 distances. The point here is that we don't have a one re'iyah to the other one.
Not yet,
but
right?
rather there is distance plus something.
Plus something, yes, you can say that.
Something also.
Sure. That, yeah.
Okay, so in other words, you need actually 2 days, the number they didn't.
Right.
So one is saying, I'm counting one occurrence and the next.
Yes.
3 over the other one is saying, I'm counting the dates on which. So would it be
possibly,
that they
yeah.
on the 3 that they're things, or the B'davka that they agree?
Well,
one is saying 3. One of them actually
no, it's
formulate 3.
no, it's how you. It would be more like how you look at it. How you look at it.
So one is the counting.
Yes. Yes.
The number of
Not
occurrences.
right. Now in Sif Hey, where this is somewhat mentioned, we had a little bit of a different scenario. In Sif Hey, we said that Mechaber mentions that Panim Shetiyah Haflaga Shekovat Bahem Aveset B'Dilug Kegon Sheraata Hayom V'Raata Shenit Lesof Lamed Shlishit LeLamed Aleph U'Revi'it LeLamed Beit Kava Veset LeDilug Shel Haflagot. So in Sif Hey, you don't really have the example of that we just mentioned where there is a machlokes, but it's a scenario which appears to be in Tosfos, where the Veset of Dilug, or the skips, occurs in a number of days versus the number of the day of the month. In other words, it's not necessarily the 5th, then the 6th, then the 7th or 8th of the month, but it is a skip in the number of days that have elapsed. So we have one skip, 28, the next skip, 29, the next skip, 30, and so forth, but not necessarily of a particular day of the month. So that was the example in Sif Hey. And there, apparently, and this is based on the Shach and Taz that explained that in the same way that Rav and Shmuel have a machlokes in Dilug HaChodesh, they would have a machlokes in Dilug HaHaflaga. In other words, in the same way that they had a machlokes whether you need 3 or 4 times in the Dilug of the month, of the day of the month, so some would say that this would also be a machlokes between them if the dilug happens in the amount of days that have transpired, which is what Sif Hey is all about. So, Mechaber seems to, at least in Sif Hey, go along with the opinion of Rav, that if she had a 3 dilugim, in other words, let's say she saw today, then 30 days later, then 31 days, then 32 days, kava vesed ledilug shel haflagot, whether it was a bigger lapse of days, or whether it was smaller, makes no difference. As long as it's a dilug hashaved, there's a certain equal skip of 1 day in between them, or 2 days in between the lapse. That doesn't make a difference, but there's still a pattern. So here, the Mechaber seems to be going with the opinion of Rav. As we will see in Sif Zayin, we mentioned it briefly last time, the Shach says that one really has to be Machmir like Rav and Shmuel. And we have to understand why that is in a moment. But here, the Mechaber just makes it simple. That if it's Veset ha-dilug in haflaga, in the number of days, you would go like Rav. In other words, you would not require more days to establish it. In the Rishonim, you find Rabbeinu Hanan and the Ravid that they hold like Rav, and the Rambam, the Ramban hold like Shmuel. So that's why the Shach and others say that one should be Machmir like the two. What does it mean to be Machmir? Rav and Shmuel. Oh, as far as the Rishonim? You should be Machmir like the two Shias, Rav and Shmuel.
Both Chumras.
Now, what is the exact Chumrah? We'll talk about it shortly. I'm just trying to go through this. Right, and I'm going to go through the Seif in one by one. Even though we did this, I just want to review a little bit. In Sif Vav, we had another kind of a Veset. Keshem shekovat Veset b'haflaga miyamim shavim. B'shinam shavim, just like you can have a pattern of a certain amount of equal number of days or unequal number of days, but there is a pattern. It could also be b'mei chodesh or b'mei shavua. It could be in the days of the month. It could be in the days of the week. Shavim v'sheinovim shavim. For example, she saw 3 times on a Sunday or on a Thursday. Right? We mentioned these. All of these are possible patterns that can repeat themselves. Now, the Veset of the Chodesh, of the month, is not really that much explained in the Gemara how it works. The Rishonim learn it out from the Machlokes of Rav and Shmuel, that the day of the month somehow is goyrem. The day of the month has some energy to bring about the period, and it has nothing necessarily to do with a certain amount of days that have transpired. Because we definitely see that more often, I know. A certain amount of time has transpired, and yes, the period comes after so many days. But the Veset HaChodesh is something unique, that on a particular day of the month, and we said last time it's the Hebrew month, that it should come. That's very interesting. So the Poskim write that this Veset HaChodesh could be established even though it happens as sometimes a woman may see in between. There is a possibility, and we'll eventually get into that perhaps next week, where a woman can see more than once within a month. Nonetheless, the Veset HaChodesh can still be established and still remain in place, even though she may have seen in between. Because by seeing in between, what is happening is that the haflaga is changing, perhaps. In other words, haflaga meaning the amount of time that went from her first period to the second period, from the second to the third. That could change as a result of seeing more than once. But the Veset HaChodesh could still be there. The Veset HaChodesh has a certain it could establish itself and be unmovable until, of course, that particular day is removed by another Veset. So the Veset HaChodesh is a pretty strong kind of a Veset. Just a quick machlokes that I saw, that when we mentioned that we count or when we calculate the Veset HaChodesh, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a certain amount of days from the Moilad, or is it from when Rosh Chodesh begins? So the Shach brings down the Ra'ah that you don't count from Rosh Chodesh, you count from the Moilad. You know what the Moilad is?
Yeah, so the seed
The what? Yeah. This is something that the Shach brings down here, that you count from the Moilad, the number of days, because it's the number of days from the Moilad that actually brings about the period. Whereas, no, we don't hold like that. The Shach goes along with what the Rashba and the Rosh say, that it's number of days from the actual calendar days that are determined by Beis Din. The Rashba, the Rosh, somehow, and I think that this is a very, very important statement, a very unique statement that could help us understand many other ideas in Judaism, Bichlal, is that there is a koach. Beis Din has a certain koach. If they said today is Rosh Chodesh, through those through Adam, anything that somehow related to that is set. In other words, Mishamayim, they agree with them, and that affects even natural laws, or whatever. Yeah, which is very interesting. Yes, yeah.
That the mikveh ladies that on Rosh Chodesh, that's the heaviest mikveh.
Oh, is it?
Most of the majority.
I haven't heard anything. No, that would be very interesting. I mean, I haven't really done an in-depth study about that. But
that's what.
Dafka Rosh Chodesh?
Rosh Chodesh Dafka, yes, it's the heavy mikveh zakar.
I guess maybe one of these days we'll do a statistics. Yeah.
What do you do in an Uber month when you have 2 days of the Chodesh?
Because he said it depends on Rosh Chodesh.
Since we're counting from Rosh Chodesh and not the month.
Right.
You have like 2.
Right. No, the Rosh Chodesh is the first day of the month, not the 30th of the last month. Right. That's correct. Yeah. Because some months are 29 and a half. I mean, not all months are 29 and a half, but because you can't have a half a day. So that's why some months are 30 and some months are 29. So that's the way it works in the Jewish calendar.
So we're never really on the...
So that was another question that we had. The machlok is whether the oina and beinan is going to be 30, is going to be 31. It depends. Does it matter? Right? And we said no. A month is a month, regardless of the fact that some months are longer and some months are shorter. Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether that might let.
No, the Shach doesn't hold from the Moilad. He brings down the sheet that holds from the Moilad, but he goes along with the Rashba and the Rosh that says we don't go by the actual Moilad.
No.
Yeah. All right.
And who the Moilad?
There are, yeah. All right, then we went on to explain about Veset of the Yom HaShavua. Yeah, just real quickly, the Veset of the Yom HaShavua, that we're talking about, obviously, that there's an equal amount of time has transpired between those days of the week. From one Tuesday, 3 weeks later to the following Tuesday, and so forth. We're talking, obviously, about an equal amount of time. So there's a good question on that. If we're talking about an equal amount of time that's transpired between a particular day of the week and the next, then who cares that it's in the same day of the week? We still have an exact amount of time that has transpired between one event and the next event, and that is a haflaga. What difference would it make that it's in the same day of the week?
I mean, how can it
that
be
the
the
Piskei
same
Tshuva brings this.
How can it be the same day?
Right. In other words, since we're talking about, there could be something. Yeah.
It won't be the same.
Right.
So
But
it's the same day.
right. So in other words, since we're talking about the same day of the week, meaning that we're talking about an equal amount of days between 2 days, then what's the chiddush of Veset HaShavua?
For it to be disaster.
Yeah,
So,
I don't understand what you're saying.
well, for it to be the same day of the week, then the distance between the Richter standard and just having the same amount of days in between.
Well,
You can either
let's say you have every 3 weeks,
21 days.
every 21 days. All right.
You could say, oh, so it's 21.
Right.
Or you could say, no, this is a special case of it being a multi of the days. Maybe you're counting the weeks here in between.
Yeah. Well, here the question was why call this a Veset of a day of the week if it's recurring? If it's recurring,
Because
the same amount of a certain amount of days, which is always going to be equal.
Because the week, which we haven't said out Ha'omer, that's why I'm saying that.
Right. Okay.
We count the days and the weeks.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
So if
Right.
you look deeper into it, the weeks and the days.
Yeah.
It could be that you're saying, no, if I have here that repeats itself in terms of weeks, then I'm looking to that
No,
repeats itself in
the
terms of
Omer is a
days.
special case, because that's
Yeah.
the pasuk.
Right.
Okay?
There's a
This
reason
comes
why
out,
it says that.
if the pasuk didn't say, the pasuk says so, but this one,
Yeah.
there's no pasuk saying, that's the shayla.
That's the question.
No.
No. Yes.
Perhaps I'm wrong.
No. Right.
And if that's 28 days.
All right. Which is typical
and,
average.
and,
Yeah.
on Monday, it always happens on a Monday.
Sure.
According to this interpretation, that if the days of the week are to be, she has to be careful,
Every Monday.
whether it's 7 days or 14 days or whatever.
Why every Monday?
According to this
Right.
interpretation, one could understand the day of the week, she has to be careful.
Yeah, but
The
she's
way
not.
you formulated one might be. No, but
Yes.
but I don't think you meant.
No, of course not, because she doesn't see every Monday, right? She sees it every number of days. It just happens to be that it's always the same day of the week.
Right, so here's the kiddush here.
Right.
Well, I think that I forget the gentleman. The Torah prescribes us to do this kind of count, but that doesn't challenge the idea that it's a different set.
Yeah.
Doesn't challenge that. And my point was that if there is indeed, in fact, expressed instructions to count both this as distinction between the two, then maybe such distinction would apply.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, no one is saying that we're counting the instead of
there is another opinion on how.
One more
right.
thing. And by the way, what could also count is that of these. But there is a vision where we don't look at the count. We allow any kind of what we're looking for is 28, 14, whatever.
Right.
But it's a repetition. What if it's 30? A weaker case of 28.
I'll tell you Pashup, but I'll tell you Pashup. But I see what you're saying. Very good. No, very good. No, it's very good what you're saying. Because there is therefore another opinion on what the Mechaber readings here. But I'm not going to get into that. The Pashup shot, it's very, as we will soon see for the next Seifim, we will be able to get a little bit of an idea as to if one veset or pattern has a better chance of being of repeating itself more than others. In other words, is it possible that something that is based on days of the week or a day of the month has more power, is more predictable than just something that happens every 26 days? Perhaps a veset that is every number of days could sometimes change. A veset that somehow, I don't know how, but by the laws of nature or this anatomy of this woman has established itself at a particular day of the week or month is more significant. And this could make a difference. This could make a difference, as we will see, that Rav and Shmuel sometimes are in agreement about certain vestas, and they differ about others. One is more susceptible, I don't know if that's the right word, or prone to happen than others. Since we're talking about it, a veset of haflaga in itself of more than 30 days is not common. Let's say a woman has seen every 60 days, and we have that example, right? We'll talk about it tonight. She saw Nisan, Sivan, Av. She skipped a month. Would that be a veset a haflaga of 60 days, or would that be a veset of she skips a month? And we see from the Meforshim is that no, don't treat that, and this perhaps goes along with what you've been saying too, and how you look at it. Don't look at this as her pattern is being set on 60 days, rather on a pattern that skips a month. Because it's more likely that she's skipping than she's seeing every 60 days, which the typical woman does not see.
When she's 30 days, except for skipping a month within 30 days interval.
Right.
Really, her
something like that.
Is 30 days. Otherwise, why is she skipping a day? She's not.
Right, something like that.
Her visit is days, except for each second month she's skipping that 30 days.
Could be. Yeah, in other words, so it makes a difference. A little bit makes a difference in halacha on how you look at this veset, and we will see it in the following seifim.
You were saying ultimately that it's powerful than
it could be.
Certain distance, but you were saying the source for that.
No, I wasn't quoting a source. I was saying that on my own that perhaps there could be a difference. Because right now we have a question. What's the chiddush? What exactly is the chiddush? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What is the chiddush on? Since it does happen basically every so many days, every 28 days, like you said, or 21 days. Why tell us that this is a veset of the Shavua, of the Yom HaShavua? What? Yeah, sure. Pischei Tshuva. And several others who raised the question. It's not my question.
And what were they given?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's where we're headed. Yeah. So what's the chiddush over here? So one explanation given is that veset of haflaga would require 4 re'iyas. Remember that? We spoke about the veset haflaga requiring 4 times, because you have to have 3 haflagas. And in order to have 3 real equal haflagas, you have to have had 4 times that she saw. Within 4 times, you will have 3 haflagas. And perhaps the veset HaShavua, you don't need 4. All you need is 3. She's seen it on Monday 3 times. Yes. So that's one explanation given as to what. A very good explanation, sure. Yeah.
Because you want to skip distance.
Yeah.
So that would be going
in a day,
forward, right? Who is?
Well, it depends. If you're requiring 3, maybe they both would agree.
The point is,
on the day of the week, maybe they too will agree. Rav and Shmuel would agree.
You only get a difference between areas like Shmuel. And with Shmuel, it requires 4, right? 3 years.
Well, sometimes Shmuel requires 5 as a rule.
And I didn't know yet.
Yeah.
So as far as to this point,
Right.
where one is requiring 4, the other is be identical to the...
Rav. Rav would require
Rav
3.
3 would be identical to weekdays.
Right.
Monday, then you have to see 3 Mondays. And Rav requires 3 years versus distance.
Yeah, but it could be...
Shmuel who requires 4.
Right.
So they're with you.
Yeah, but maybe they would both agree on this. Yeah, as we will soon see that it is possible for the two of them to agree sometimes.
With respect to they would agree.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but that's something else.
Yeah.
But they would only disagree. The only one who would disagree would potentially Shmuel.
Yes.
I mean, Rav would agree automatically.
Right. There are some small nafkaminas over here too. That if we call this a veset haflaga, or if it's a yom hashavua, what happens if within this haflagas she sees, as we said, it could happen that a woman would see within her haflaga, she sees every 28 days, and somehow she had a semi-period. That could also make a difference. Because then, it's somehow, if it's a haflaga, it interferes with the haflaga. She sees every 28 days, but all of a sudden she saw after 17 days. So that after 17 days somehow messes up the haflaga that she ordinarily has. Whereas it would not mess up the day of the week. She somehow saw also, in addition to her regular day of the week, she saw in between. That may be a small enough commitment on how you treat this vesed.
Chances are, unless it so happens that it was after 14 days, probably sees on a Monday.
Right.
So I would seeing on the Thursday rather than a Monday, whereas seeing on the 17th instead of...
Yeah, as long as, because remember, once you have a pattern of seeing a certain day of the week, then you've established a vesed kavua, which to uproot it would mean that you would have to uproot it 3 times. Right. So if she has seen it on a certain day, even if she sees right now, 1 week she saw it also on a Wednesday, or instead.
Or she saw it on
also.
And then she saw it on a Monday as well.
Yes.
She saw it twice that month?
Yes, twice that month.
And by the skip distance points?
Or she didn't necessarily see it plus an additional day, instead, on a different day, I should say, right.
So why does
that still would not interfere.
Why doesn't Thursday? She always sees it on a Monday.
Right.
Now she sees it on a Sunday.
Right.
So then we have to worry about the Sunday, the Monday?
No, that's something else.
But then it did interfere about both.
Oh, what? That she has to worry? That's a different thing.
But it's the same thing with if she saw it after it wouldn't affect more than just having her if she saw it once, or would it?
No, but it interferes with haflaga. Haflaga.
What does it mean in
well, that depends on how many times she saw it.
Well, right. Just seeing it once.
Right.
Wouldn't by the weekday.
Well, No, the question is in the very beginning when she's establishing. When she's establishing with haflagas, remember with haflagas you have to have 4 times. Right, exactly. So you may, according to Shmuel, you may not even have, according to Shmuel, you may not have the 3 haflagas. You may only have 2 haflagas. If
you say Shmuel is counting the first, right? He's counting the skip distances.
Yes,
so,
right.
So he's also only counting 3. So skip distances, then it's not established.
Yeah, but it's not exactly 3 because the first time is not a real skip. This the first day.
No, the first skip to the second day.
Right. Anyway, there would be some nafkaminas. It doesn't really matter too much. Yeah. Now the Chavas Das brings something very interesting here. If you do have, let's say 3 times on the same day of the week, Chavas Das says, what happens if she sees the 4th time on the same day? Then that igloi milsa, that according to him, that would reveal that she's really seeing a haflaga, an equal haflaga versus a certain day of the week. Let's say, so she saw three times in a row on the same day of the week. Chavas Das wants to say if she were to see a 4th time on the same day of the week, what she's seeing really is an equal number of days. A haflaga of, remember, it's 4 times.
Not necessarily, or whatever.
No, it's on the same day of the week.
And the same week of the month.
She saw 7 days later, 14 days later, and 21 days later, right? So that's 3. Then she sees on the next one, 28 days later. That's 4th time. Oh, I'm sorry, that's every 7 days. Yeah. She saw.
The question is the 21 days.
Right.
The next 28 days.
Right, no, but let's say it's the same thing. I meant the same thing. I got confused here. She saw it every 21 days or every 20 days on the same day of the week.
Both 21 and 28?
No, either one. Let's stick with one example.
Okay.
All right, 28 days on the same Tuesday. But she saw it now 4 times. She did not only see 3. She saw it for a fourth time. So he wants to say, well, once she's seen it 4 times, then don't treat this as a vesed of the day of the week. Treat this as a vesed haflaga, which according to what we see, is a much stronger vesed than the day of the week. In other words, I shouldn't say stronger, it's a more common. It says it's very unusual for a woman to have a pattern based on the day of the week. It is more likely that she's establishing a pattern of a number of equal days in between. That's all. So he says, once you have it a 4th time, he says you get away from this day of the week thing. You know, like you were saying, perhaps now she would no longer have to be concerned for a day of the week. Maybe that's where it would make a difference, but now she would have to be concerned with the vesed haflag.
How does he hold with respect to the 3 or 4 days?
Well, he doesn't mention that over here.
Because why does he use the number?
Because that, then it would be according to everyone, even according to Shavuot.
So it is. So
yes, in other words, yes,
yeah.
So I guess you could say that. Being machmer, yes. Right. Yeah.
In other words, he holds that a skip is more likely.
More likely in nature, yes, to happen. And this is, a day of the week is lo shchiach, he says. It's not very common. So if you see it happen the 4th time, says by the 4th time, he says, I would call it a vesed haflaga and not pay any to the day of the week that it happened. And there is, I should say also that there is a difference in what you call it from now on too. Because let's say we're calling it vesed haflaga. All right? Every 28 days, she has vesed haflaga. Comes along the vesed haflaga day, and she doesn't see. She doesn't see. Not that she saw another day. She doesn't see. What now? She's not choishes to any day until she sees again, right? When does she have to be choishes? When she saw another day. When she sees another day, then there's a problem here. It interferes with her original pattern. But she stopped seeing, and she has an haflaga. So if you call it a vesed haflaga and she stops seeing, she does not have to be concerned until she starts seeing again. With a vesed hashavua, she would have to continue concerned about that day of the week.
So on the 20th day, she would have to check.
She would have to check again. It's the same weekday exactly. If she sees another day, then there is a new haflaga, right? She doesn't see anymore on her original day, and the vesed hashavua, she would be still chosheshet. Anyway, apparently there is some differences in how you treat it. This is what I saw in the various poskim that talk about if it would make a difference if it's a vesed hashavua or vesed haflag. All right. Anyway, vesed haflag is definitely more common. So that more likely than not is what is happening after a number of times it repeats. All right. So let's continue with.
But if you don't, then really you will never. Because if you're going to have a vesed hashavua, it's not just every time; it will always have to be at least repeating itself. And then by the 4th time,
according to the Chavas Das, not everybody agrees with him.
I'm saying when you say that.
Yeah, but I'm saying that.
You really.
If what? According to the Chavas Das, according to Chavas Das, that this would only be possible for 3 times. After that, he changes the name. He switches over. He says it's become something else. We thought maybe it's a vesed hashavua. It's something like that, perhaps. But after a while, it's a different animal.
So it's only a vesed hashavua.
Right. Perhaps. Yeah. We'll deal with it when it comes up.
No, you're saying that the skip distance would have to be a Wednesday, but now 21. Then the skip distance would be different.
I didn't understand that.
Well, when would you have a vesed hashavua and not a vesed hafla? If the 4th time she sees on, let's say, 21 days,
then it's vesed. According to him, it's vesed haflaga and no longer vesed hashavua.
Before that, you were seeing on a Wednesday. Now it's still a Wednesday, but it's 20. So the Gabe, the weekday would be the same week. The skip distance, it would no longer be 20. So she did see 4 times in a row this.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. But
it was 21 instead of 8, but it was still the same instead of.
That's a good point. That's a good. I see what you're saying. What would happen in that case?
Yeah.
Well,
we did say vesed hashavua because it's a weekday.
Yes.
But he would say it's not a vesed haflaga because it's also.
Well, obviously, that would go the other way around. It would become more of vesed hashavua, perhaps. Yeah. But in that case, it would also change because we're assuming the way that I think the Shach explained is that this vesed hashavua is repeating itself
on the same.
Exactly. So if it were to happen that it came back less, then it's
neither.
It's neither. It's almost it's losing. I think that's the way the Shach explains that it would have to be equal amount of weeks. Otherwise, it's out of sync. Yeah.
So basically, it's either regularly 21 days or regular hashavua instead of vesed haflaga.
Right, and apparently there would be a difference, a nafkamina, between what you call it, the vesed hashavua or vesed haflaga, where one could be much more. One would be stricter than the other one, perhaps. All right. In Sif Zayin, we brought down the two shitas. Here the Mechaber actually brings down the two shitas. Ketzat kovas b'mei chodesh bedilug. How could it work out that she could have a pattern of skipping in the days of the month? Okay, so she says, let's say Kigosh should also tesvav nis tezayin yud zayin b'siva. Lo kova v'esel ashetir b'yudches. So she does not have a pattern until she has it on the 18th of Tammuz. Because he says Riyah Rishona is not mitztarefes. Unless, of course, unless she had a veset from before, right before, then you can combine it together with these riyas. In other words, he brings down the first shita that requires 4 riyas of skipping in the month, 1 month, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, right? So the veset is not established until 4 times, unless he says the first she had before the 3 riyas she had a veset. A regular veset that she saw on a particular day of the month, which was right before, a little bit before. So you can count it, since it was kavua, so you can count it, from that veset kavua, she skipped onto the next day, even though the skip was not exactly the same, but it counts. In other words, if she had that veset kavua, it counts as a real day, or a real starting point, from which that you can count and include in this veset.
We read veset kavua as the haflaga.
Yes, as opposed to saying, that veset just belongs to the past. No, it belongs to the present. All right, that's what the Mechaber says. V'yesh Amrin, that's the other sheet. The Rav Shafa Pishlolo Shalom Tesva Benisan Tes Zayin B'Yav Zayin B'Si and Kavah Veset V'Chosheshet LiYudches B'Tammuz V'Yudches B'Av V'Chen LaOilam V'yesh Lochosh L'Dreim Lachman. That's where we left off. That one has to be machmer like the two sheets. So I was looking around just to try to understand a little bit more about what this exact chumrah means, because the Shach who mentions the Bach, it was not so clear, other than to say that we have to concern ourselves here with the haflaga of the past as well. So what does it mean to be machmer like the two sheep? Poshet, it means that she still is considered as though she does not have a veset kavua. If you require 4 times and not 3 to establish a veset, this type of veset, then what you're saying is that on the one hand she doesn't have a veset kavua. So what does that entail when a woman does not have a veset kavua? That she has to be choshesh for the last haflaga, for the oina beinanis, for the yom hachodesh. And what's the other chumrah? That perhaps she has established a veset. So I have to be choshesh to Yud Ches B'Tammuz in this case, to the next skip day that I'm anticipating she will see. She's been skipping. So you see, in other words, if I'm going to be machmir like the two, I'm going to be anticipating that she will skip. She has done it 3 times. But I will not consider this the only day that I'm choshesh for. I will still consider that she does not have a veset kavua as yet, because Shmuel says you need 4 times, and it really has 3. So therefore, she may have to calculate or be concerned with the last haflaga, whatever number of days it was from the last time she saw.
Said that the 3 times of Benes, and what was the
Yeah.
other one?
Oina Benes Yom HaChodesh. Now, sometimes Yom HaChodesh, Oina Benes, it could come out the exact same thing. Either way, she has to be concerned for a few additional days than just 1 day. That's the basic difference. So when the Mechaber says you have to be machmer for both, it means that you have to consider several days here.
Create a serious problem in both early.
Yeah.
That we have to be very careful days that they have to be choshesh.
No, but they're very close to each other. Remember? Yeah. Yeah, it could happen. Sometimes it could happen that there's several days to be concerned of as a pattern is being formed. We don't know. That's what we're looking for, a pattern. We're trying to see, is there or there's not. If there is no pattern, then on a regular basis she has to be concerned about 3 potential days. But once they've passed, she's fine. If they pass, usually, a period in a normal, young, healthy woman will come at some point. Rarely does she skip a month unless she's already in her later years, in the menopause years, where it becomes either sporadic or skipping or stops. But before that, you have to expect that the oreach, the guest, it's called, will come whenever he's due, either a little bit earlier, a little bit later. So if she hasn't had it yet, well, we figure, at least every 30 days, which is the oina benanis, she may still get it. Whereas a woman who has a veset kavua has a certain advantage, that she doesn't have to be concerned about any other days. And then there's the one that has a chatzi benanis. And we haven't really gotten to how this actually works out. We will be learning that later on, how this works out in real life.
So when you say be separated,
For that oina, for those 12 hours or 24 hours, depending on of the time that she's expecting it, or that there's a possibility that it may. So a woman has to keep track. She has to have a chart and to know when those days are, and it helps when she feels something in her body too, which we will talk about separately. The vested that comes about as a result of her body feeling differently, that she can somewhat rely on that too. So it can become a little bit difficult at times, but usually, there is a safe period when nothing is to be expected until a certain amount of days have elapsed from the last time. So it's only when you get close to when she's expecting it that it could be off a day or two because she's not very, very. She doesn't have a set pattern. For it to be changeable, 21 days, then 28, then 32 days, I don't think that happens too much.
is uncommon.
No, there is irregularity, but not too much irregularity. I mean, although we talk about the average. Average, within a month, she's going to see it. That's the average. If within a month she's going to see, well, could it be very early? Yes, sometimes it could be very early. Could it be early all the time? Yes, sometimes that too. But after a while, she can see, her pattern. And unless there's some major changes in her life, in the diet or in taking a big trip, usually it's within a range. Yes.
Is it the husband's responsibility, or is that something that she generally does?
No, that's the woman's responsibility. But the husband should hopefully be aware approximately of when that time is, and check with his wife regularly. Make sure that in other words, is she clean or not?
Practically.
Well, he has to ask her if there's any doubt, because we spoke about it in the very beginning of Hilchos Niddah.
So she does
a man who goes out of town. There's a mitzvah for him to be with his wife. So I mean, what if it's close to that point where she's expecting it? So it could be a little tricky. So this is really the responsibility of the woman. She has to be aware of that, be on top of that. So she should not be machshil. She should not. What's the word in English for that? She should not make her husband stumble here, and herself in a big avera. Yeah. But anyway, for the most part, it is possible. It is possible for the woman to figure out when those times are, and to be choishish, at least if it's a Basar she'eino kavua, the next month for those days that she saw the previous month. And once it does not happen on those days, then those days are gone forever. And now she calculates from the new days. The Oina Benin is the Yom HaChodesh, because she's not seeing it on the exact same days. So she's scratching out the old days because they're no longer relevant. She can, keep track more or less when it's happening and when to expect. All right, just to finish up here, a few more.
So the woman has to check the
Sure.
So he has to
but he can rely on her. An isha, sheira, a righteous woman, a husband should trust her and not be too paranoid, the halacha says. You sure? You want to check it again? Don't be too paranoid. That's not a good idea. And we discussed that before too, because that can make trouble too. You should rely on her most. That's her responsibility. All right. In Sif Ches, the last few seifim I'm going to really go through quickly because they're pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
These reviewed from time to time. Is that not so?
Yes, a woman, a kala, should have a book, machberet, a notebook, with notes. She should review occasionally. And it helps for the men too to review Hilchos Niddah from time to time. Yeah, the basics. She's the one that's more in charge with the details. How to check herself, make sure that she's gone through the list of things to do before she goes to the mikveh. And if there's a mikveh lady, which hopefully there is, mikveh lady also make sure, point out certain things the woman may have forgotten. And sometimes there's complicated questions. That's why we have all these halachas too, for complicated situations. What then? She's spotting. That could make a lot of problems for a couple. You have to consult a rabbi who's from the woman or the man. If the woman is not comfortable asking the rabbi, then tell her husband to ask the rabbi.
If she's not correct, because she might feel embarrassed to.
No, most of the women are not embarrassed to tell their husband. No, There may be some women who are embarrassed to tell the rabbi directly, but to tell their husband, no. No, not, I don't. I've never heard of a woman being embarrassed to tell her husband.
Maybe she was.
Yeah, no. So anyway.
Still trust.
Yeah, sure. It's all about trust. Anyway, the last few sifrim, I'm going to go through them real quickly. In Sif Ches, Ra'asa Gimel Ponim V'Gimel Chadoshim B'Dilug V'Chozo V'Ra'asum B'Oisum Dilugim Atzon. This is the Veset called Veset that repeats itself. In other words, it's a trend that comes back in the following way. She saw 3 times in 3 months B'Dilugim V'Chozo V'Ra'asum B'Oisum Dilugim Atzmon. Im Noago Ken Gimel Ponim V'Reze Veset Kavua L'Dilug Chalila. What does that mean, Chalila? Let's say, Ketzar, also Tes Vav B'Nisan, Tes Zayin B'Iyar, Yud Zayin B'Sivan. Okay, we're familiar with that. That's a regular skip of 1 day in 3 months. But then, Chazar Chalila, but also Tes Vav Tammuz, Tes Zayin Av, Yud Zayin Elu. And then, Chazar, but also Tes Vav Tishrei, Tes Zayin B'Cheshvan, Yud Zayin B'Kislev. Yes, in other words, it's not that she's skipping every single month. Instead, she's in groups of 3, she's coming back to the exact same skip sequence. 15, 16, 17. Then 4th, 5th, 6th month is 15, 16, 17, right? The following 3 months, 15, 16, 17.
And are you talking about...
That's called Chalila, Diluk Chalila.
Are you talking about dates or distances?
Dates of the months, right now dates of the months. Chaza Chalila v'roso tesva, right? V'oid v'chaza v'roso tesva v'tishrei, kavala v'esel l'diluk Chalila, v'chosheshes l'oilam tesva v'lechodesh zeh, tes zayin lechodesh zeh, v'yud zayin lechodesh zeh. So she can follow this particular...
This example changes my understanding of the Saflaga. Queen that was shorter than the others. No?
Makes no difference. Right, makes no difference.
It's
the dates of the month.
Distance is regular.
Right, and that's why the Shach says over here is an example that even Rav and Shmuel will both be maskim that it's enough 3 times because it's the day of the month. For it to recur like that, you don't need it more than 3 times.
So distance.
It's like the Veset of Chodesh, the day of the Chodesh. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the occurrence in the days.
Right, it's not.
Because here the distance, according to some.
No, not at all.
It's the month.
Right.
And that's always the dates of the month?
Sure. In this case.
I'm asking generally dates of the month?
No, either one. Either one.
So it would be one of the 2.
Right. Either it's the Veset HaChodesh, right? Or the Veset HaChodesh B'Dilug of skip, right? But it's a day of the month. Or it's Haflaga, every 28 days, or it's a Dilug in Haflaga, 28 days, then 29 to 30 days. Different kinds. All right. Sif Tes Rosso Be'echad Be'Nisan. Ube'alef be'Sivan. Okay, you follow me? No year. Nisan, Aleph be'Sivan, Be'alef be'Av.
That's the day cycle.
So this is what I mentioned. Here we have a 60-day cycle. Kavala Veset leRosh Chodesh leDilugim, with a skip of a month. Aval Rosso be'Echad be'Nisan, Be'echad be'Iyar, Ube'echad then be'Tammuz, Ube'echad be'Sivan. Lo Rosso, she didn't Lo Kavala Veset. Obviously, she did not establish herself a Veset in that sense, right? If she saw first Nisan, first Sivan, first of, there's a skip of 30 days in between, fine. Kavala Veset, there's a skip of a month in between, but if she sees Nisan, then Iyar, which is the following month, and then Tammuz, she skips Sivan, in other words, in Sivan she didn't see, there's no Veset yet. It has to be exactly the same thing. Either she's skipping all the time 30 days, or it's sequential, 1 month after another. So I'm going to explain this a little bit more when we get to the Yud base. Sif Yud, Roso Tesvav Benisan, Tes Zayin Be'iyar, Ve'Yud Ches Be'Sivan, Lo Kova Veset, Kivan Shesirgo Be'Chodesh HaShlishi Ve'Lo Roso Ad Yud Ches Boy. Right? So this is a similar situation, just that the skip was not exact. She saw the 15th of Nisan, the 16th of Iyar, and instead of seeing the 17th of Sivan, she saw the 18th of Sivan. It's not complete. No Veset, but she didn't see Ad Yud Ches Bo. So this is easy to follow. Yud Aleph, Dilgo Pam Eichas, or Shtaim, Eino Chosheshes LeDilu. If she had 1 or 2 skips, it doesn't mean anything. It could be, it happened that 1 year she somehow had a skip. Now this is an important halacha, even though it appears very simple. Eino Chosheshes LeDilug is important because when he says Eino Chosheshes mean, this is not a day that I'm going to have to be concerned with. Exactly. You know how we have certain days to be concerned about for a woman who has no Vesek Kavua? The fact that she saw once or twice and skips doesn't matter. It could be an accident. It could be something random.
With other Veset, she would be Choshesh even once. She saw, today is the 6th of the month. She saw. She has no Veset Kavua, right? Next month, she has to be concerned about the 6th of the month. So she has to be concerned, right? When she has no Veset Kavua, she has to be always concerned about 3 dates, right? About the Veset, about the Haflogo, the last Haflogo, the Oino Beinonis, and the day of the Chodesh. Comes along the next day, the next month, and she did not see it on that day that she has to be Choshesh for, it's gone. It's gone. One time. She's only has to be Choshesh for it once because she doesn't have a Veset Kavua. But, since it didn't come, it's gone. Erased. Now let's say she sees it on the 8th day of the month. Well, that 8th day of the month is now the day she has to be concerned for the following month. Right, that's always, yeah. So therefore, he's telling us in Yud Aleph that if she has it skipped once, then another skip, that she perfect. What did I skip? Even though with other days she'd be choshesh for once, eino chosheshes leveset adiluk achetikvaeno. Veset adiluk of skips, she never has to be concerned about it that she's skipping unless she has it 3-4 times. In other words, until it has been established, it's not one of those days that she has to be concerned about.
So according to bullshit, she has to really be choshesh.
Right. Yeah. In Sif Yud Beis, which is where we'll start today, he goes into a little bit more explanation of how sirug works. So let's just take a look at it. In Yud Beis, he says like this: Veset asirug riya rishono mina minyan ledivrei hakol. In a Veset asirug, which means a skip of 30 days, the first time is part of the count, according to everybody. Rav and Shmuel, the afal pi sheirchiko riyoseo, even though there's 60 days in between, they're far apart. Ela shele'inyach shash vesta betchilo hu shove ledilog. But sirug, which means skip, is similar to a skip of days. Here, sirug meaning a skipping of a month, alternating. In one way, it's similar to the veset of skipping of days. That she doesn't have to be concerned that this is an established pattern until it happens a number of times. Just like it's shovele dilug, just like we just finished saying that by dilug, it's not one of those days I have to be concerned about if she skips, because unless it's 3 times. Sirug is the same thing. She's skipping every other month. No, I'm still not going to be concerned about it until it's established itself. But only for the following month I need to be concerned. In other words, this month, maybe she might see it the next month. That, yes, that's the only thing I have to be concerned about. She has to watch out for Rosh Chodesh Iyar. If she did not see until Rosh Chodesh Sivan, she's Choshesh, right? She saw Nisan, she's Choshesh for Iyar, nothing happened. And she sees on Sivan.
Does she have Sivan?
No.
No, she didn't see it.
Because she didn't see it on Iyar, right?
But she sees it.
But she sees it anyway. Choshesh is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, because she just saw it. So we're back to...
And she doesn't see it.
Asamuchlo. V'im lo ra'asa b'Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, eino choshesh Rosh Chodesh Av. Afal pi, even though shema flogas beis chodoshim, even though you do have a hafloga of 2 months, keina hafloga rishoina, it doesn't matter. The fact that she skipped, she didn't see it in the second month, bitla riyas hachodesh harishon, it eliminated the first chodesh. V'riyas hachodesh hashlishi yatchalas veses. The third time she sees it is the beginning of the veset, because she's established now a pattern. And then she has to be concerned to the next month only, and nothing more than this. So let me just explain why this works like that. So in Veset Asirug, she's skipping a month. And here we said that the first 3 is part of the Cheshbon. That was true in Sif Yud Beis and also in Sif Ches. So why would everybody agree here? So this is how I saw someone explaining here, that the whole reason that the Ravid, I think, is the one that explains that according to everybody in Veset Asirug, the Riyah Rishon would be from the meaning, because the whole machlokes between Rav and Shmuel is because in Veset HaChodesh, everybody agrees when you're seeing it on a certain day of the month that the first time is also part of the minyan. It's unique. It's a certain day of the month. In the Veset HaFlaga, everybody agrees that the first one doesn't count because you need to have a flaga, and so you have to have 4 times. So on that there's no machlokes here that you need 4. So where is there a machlokes? In Veset HaChodesh b'dilug. That's where we first encounter machlokes, is you have the chodesh. But it's not the same day of the month. It's a skip. The 5th day of the month, the 6th day of the month, the 7th day of the month. So there you have Rav compares Veset Adilik of the Chodesh to Veset HaChodesh. He says, after all, it's a day of the month. So what if it's 15, then 16, then 17? So Rav says, I only need 3 because it's unique to a day of the month. And Shmuel says, since it's skipping, it's more like Haflaga, right? In other words, a certain amount of days have gone by. And therefore, that's the machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Veset Asirug, of a whole skip of 30 days, everybody agrees it's more like a Veset HaChodesh. Since it is on the same day of the month, what difference does it make that it skipped 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days? It doesn't matter. The fact that it's the same day is what makes it unique. So, of course, Rav and Shmuel would both agree that you don't need 4 times, all you need is 3 times. So that's the reason why here everybody would be in agreement. Now, the question here is, well, what about Haflaga? Why don't you concern yourself with Haflaga all this time? 60 days went by, isn't that a Haflaga? Why? We said she doesn't have to be concerned except for the following month. It was the month following the month that she saw. Right. Because she saw. Could be she will see 30 days from now. That yes, and now not a Haflaga? So the Shach says very simple. Most women see days. That's something to expect. That's something common. Who has an haflaga every 60 days? That's not a haflaga. It says you don't have to be choshish for that kind of a haflaga. There is no such a haflaga, generally speaking. So haflaga? No. Chodesh? Yes. So even though the Chavas Das says that you do have to, for some reason he says that it is a haflaga, but I don't think everybody goes along with this. She's establishing a pattern. The pattern is called sirug. A month is being skipped, and that's it. Now, as far as uprooting the sirug, he says very interesting. How could a woman uproot it? The Chavas Das says there's 2 ways she can uproot her sirug. Her sirug, she's been skipping a month.
She'll see it.
No, 2 ways. Either she stops seeing altogether for 6 months. She needs 3 times. Or she has developed a steady veset. In other words, instead of having a skip, the next time it was Tishrei Cheshvan Kislev. That, of course, uproot. That basically can undo the sin. But for undoing, you need to have exact 3 times because she's established herself the veset of 3 times. To undo that veset, you also need 3 times.
So, but as a veset.
Yeah, that's only according to him.
To undo it.
Yeah.
According to such veset,
you would
doesn't need to undo anything.
What do you mean she doesn't have to do it?
Undo.
No, undo. She still has a veset of sirug to undo somehow.
30 days.
Somehow. Yeah.
But it's automatically undone now. But she never had 3 seeing.
No, she would have to have had it 3 times
in a row.
In a row with a skip, and then she would have to undo it.
If she saw 360 days, then she has days with a skip.
With a skip, right? That's called veset asir. Okay.
So because she wait a second, sees it on one day, and then she does not see it 30.
Right.
Is that part of up, or is it not part of it?
Not yet.
Because with the skip.
Right. Anything can happen. Until it happens over 3 times, you're not sure.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean anything.
Not see it 6.
Okay, we'll continue next week.